Graphic design seems to be going through a period of transition at the moment. The sassy mix and match of fonts associated with self-consciously stylish practitioners such as Neville Brody is giving way to something cooler, plainer, more subtle. How should we recognise the new restrained style? Well, it might use the white simplicity of the page, as in these designs for the banking service First Direct. Or it might favour the functional directness of this recent edition of the Weekend Guardian. The three graphic designers who style themselves 8VO have been pioneering this approach for nearly 10 years now. They've put together for The Late Show their manifesto for the future of graphic design.
Reject the past, reject style. Simplify design. Simplify design.
80s graphics was really far from simple and really like wallpaper in that you could paste up 80s graphics with wallpaper and not really see the difference. A lot of design does seem to be about complexity for the wrong reasons, in that people get self-indulgent and clever about making, you know, interesting patterns or textures or using new techniques which are readily available today, and just kind of like homing in on the surface qualities and the details and little areas and saying, wow, this is amazing, how exciting. But, you know, when the thing's sitting on the wall 10 feet away, what does it mean?
So you end up in a situation where designers are designing business cards as if they're posters, or they're designing a poster as if it's a business card. And there's no understanding of how different formats require a different attitude.
It's a street poster. It's simple, but it's complex. There are a few curved corners at the bottom. There's a big lozenge. There's some big teeth eating into the lozenge. And there's one typeface family. Okay, some of it's out of focus. Some of it's rounded. Some of it's outline. But it's also, it's very much about the colours we use. So it's actually, it's simple. Imagine a poster on a wall 10 feet away. If you squint at it and it's complex, it'll just disappear into some kind of grey mass. It might have an overall colour. But if something is simple, when you squint at it, it's still got a shape and a structure. You can still, it's what we, well, the word is gestalt. There's a form, the thing is one. It's a series of elements put together, it's constructed, it's there.
Intuition, not erudition. Intuition, not erudition.
Most people's intuition goes as far as a little pencil drawing no bigger than this, and it's a big idea, and then it's passed to somebody else. I've got an idea, give it to somebody else to work it up, finalise it. The process stops, and that's tragic. What we're about is actually allowing the intuition to come through in reality, not abstract. So you're working with real materials. You're not having abstract ideas saying, wouldn't it be great if we did this? Wouldn't it be great if we're doing that? You're there. You're doing it. It's reality. You're working it through, and you're coming up with a real piece of work at the end of the day. Hacienda 4 probably went through 30 or 40 stages. It's intuitive in that there's a lot of soul-searching and a lot of questioning. You're nailing down all the decisions early on and building it up almost as a kit, sticking things down, standing it up 15 feet away. It's just a pile of coloured paper and sellotape. Yes, it might be a lot of work just to create one little element to go on a poster. It may take 5 hours to manufacture, and even after that we might say, well, it doesn't work. It's about not being precious about what you're creating. It's about having the ability to stand back from it and say, well, that's a pile of shit, let's tear all that up, let's start again. We're using sheets of glass and clear, translucent coloured film, and layering pieces of coloured film over other pieces of coloured film to create the space.
Although you may not be aware of it consciously, there is a real depth there, and you can sense it. It's almost like you can fall into the thing. You know, it is about half a mile deep if you want it to be. Other designers, more erudite designers, would approach it in a different way. If the brief, if you like, was to make depth, perhaps they draw a picture of a cube, or make a cube and wrap the lettering around a cube. That kind of illustrative version of depth, which people recognise instantly as, oh right, it's three-dimensional, it's depth. Whereas we took a more abstract approach, where the actual layers of depth are not visible. You can't see the frames.
Design is visual engineering. Design is visual engineering.
There is some kind of analogy to kind of like engineering, making bridges or buildings. Those kind of structures have also sort of an heroic quality and kind of a permanence, which a lot of graphic design doesn't have to have. But we try sincerely to actually make our work as responsible as a good building, in that, you know, if it's still around in 20 years and it's well engineered, it still works. Whereas so much graphic so-called design is about, you know, a lifespan of 2 weeks and then it's in the bin. Octave is a journal about typography, showing typography in graphic design, painting and other fields. You have to engineer the design from the smallest elements.
Every part of the page is working on the same microstructure, really. Page numbers, captions, pictures, text, coloured shapes, rules. It's all one. It's thought about as one. It's not about thinking about little things in isolation. That, for me, is very, very close to architecture in the way that great buildings are more than just a building. They're a composite of great details, great lifts, great entryways, great doorways, great windows. The whole story.
Forget big ideas, think content. Forget big ideas, think content.
Say something like an annual report for a school. The big idea would be to make it look like an exercise book, right? Whereas our approach would be to actually lay out the content in such a way that the audience could get to it easily, and, you know, it's there for everybody to see without kind of going through that sort of tortuous kind of making an association
Whereas
process.
most design here, the association with the exercise book would become the most important thing, to the point where the way the information is laid out inside is a secondary consideration, and it takes somebody 15 minutes just to find a figure in the balance sheet. The message is a simple one, which is that here is a show which is on from X date through to Y date, and the work is on a particular artist, and it's at a particular venue. Really, the poster doesn't need to say much more than that.
I think most designers who do posters for art exhibitions may as well be designing chocolate boxes, because there's about as much design in most, Royal Academy posters as there is on a chocolate box. Apart from on the poster, you get a bit of type at the bottom. But they're terrified, those people. They just, I don't understand why.
Use technology, not craft. Use technology, not craft.
The thing I don't like about craft in this country, for instance, is how it permeates everybody's understanding of what is design, for instance. Most people's idea of design is Laura Ashley interiors, or Laura Ashley cushions, Laura Ashley wallpaper. That whole aspect, it permeates the way people think and approach design.
We feel strongly that by stripping away all the conventions and all the baggage, leaving it all behind and just trying to get it down to the elementals, keeping your principles, then you're able, you're at that kind of tiny little hole in the vortex where you can suddenly go through and come out the other side.
We have liftoff. Liftoff at 7:51 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have cleared the tower.